the first thing that we talk about is stopping the scroll. The average American is digesting content so fast now that you have to get their attention right away. You have to stop the scroll. So, Josiah, give me one technique, one surefire technique that we've used to stop that scroll. I want to welcome everybody to the first Shopanova curtain call. We're just going to go ahead and get started, and hopefully we'll get some people joining as we go. But my name is Nathan. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Shopanova. I'm going to let everybody else introduce themselves, starting with Wyatt, and then Josiah, and then Brian.
All righty. My name is Wyatt Lowe. I'm the Director of Strategy and Special Ops at Shopanova.
And I am Josiah Coe, Shopanova's content creator.
I am Brian Fitton, handling kind of internal creative for ad spends.
And so these four guys, or these three guys along with me today, are going to be kind of the brain trust when it comes to what we've got going on inside Shopanova. And moving forward, I want to do these about at least once a month, if not twice a month. And what I'm really going to be doing is bringing on team members. If you guys don't know already, at Shopanova, we have over 40 team members now. And I mean, the talent level, the experience level that we have is off the charts. We've got people that have been involved in the industry for years. They've run big budgets. They've managed some big brands, and they've come over to Shopanova because they love the culture. They love what we're doing. They believe in it. And so I kind of want to highlight all these people and bring on some guests every month, if not twice a month, to kind of chat about the actual in-depth strategy that we use at Shopanova. I know that a lot of people want to look, quote unquote, behind the curtain. So that's what these calls are going to be about. And today's call is going to be focused on two of our biggest things right now, two of our biggest topics internally. That is the iOS and Facebook battle for attribution and how that's shaking out, what we're doing with Hyros to kind of help out with that. And then we're also going to tap into Josiah and Brian a little bit on creative and how that's going to look moving forward. So first panelist that I'm going to be talking with is Wyatt. And me and Wyatt have really been kind of leading the charge in the whole attribution battle that's been going on. And it's been going on for like 6 to 8 months. It's just, we're just now getting hit with it. But we've actually been working on this for, at least 8 months, if not longer, right, Wyatt?
Yeah, so if you think about it, WWDC or JD, whatever that conference was last June, is when Apple announced iOS 14 and what they were planning to do with privacy. And technically, I think they were planning on enforcing it in the beginning of Q4. That got pushed back to the beginning of Q1. So technically, at this point, almost a year that we've been talking about iOS 14. Now, in terms of what Nathan, you're saying about us talking about our specific response to it, yes, definitely since, early November and December when we learned the, kind of the rumblings that iOS 14 was going to start to actually enforce, the actual update went live. 14 became live in September, but the update that they were referring to with the app transparency tracking network and all the prompt and everything that's been kind of the discussion point, that was starting to go live in the beginning of the year. So about 6 to 8 months about that. You're right. It's correct.
Right. And so let's talk about what this actually means, because I don't think a whole lot of people really understand what the implications are. First off, we need to kind of discern between what is an app track and what is a website or server track, right? Mm-hmm. That's something that not a whole lot of people understand. And so Wyatt, I kind of want to lean on you for a little bit and talk about that. Give me like the difference between what, Facebook is actually tracking with websites and what Facebook is tracking with apps, and how that's being looked at right now by Facebook and by Apple.
Sure. So, I mean, just to start, I mean, we'll start on the latter. I mean, mobile app has been the discussion. That's ultimately what's going to be impacted the heaviest with the update that went live last Monday. Not this Monday, the Monday before, actually, to 26th. And so basically, the process has been forever that there is a unique identifier associated with every device someone uses, and advertising platforms like Facebook can use that identifier to show you personalized ads. It's an idea. It's called IDFA. It literally stands for Identifiers for Advertisers. It's meant for advertisers to be able to connect you to your profile, show you personalized ads. And so for the tracking purpose, when we run ads and we're doing mobile direct traffic, if we're doing app install traffic, or if we're just running optimizing for app purchases, we're wanting to see people engage on our clients' apps and purchase on the app. Specifically, what's happening is they have what's known as an SDK, software development kit, or software developer kit, one of the two, that basically communicates back to Facebook and sends postbacks with certain attributable keys. That could be a click, it could be a email, it could be that IDFA. For all intents and purposes, I refer to it as people tracking, similar to that's what like the pixel is almost. It's people-based tracking, and basically what's happening now is that postback that's sending information back to Facebook is now going to be cutting off its arm and its leg, basically, to say, this is what you can send, this is what you can't send. So now the industry has been scrambling, specifically the mobile measurement industry has been scrambling to figure out a way, okay, what fits in with Apple's new SK ad network, which is what all the third-party app sellers on the App Store have to adhere to. How do we get information? How can we send that back? What are the parameters? Shifting over to web, specifically, the web journey is as follows. You click an ad, someone has a pixel on the website, the pixel begins to watch you, for lack of a better word, navigate across the site via your clicks, sees what pages you're on, certain events take place, you're viewing specific content, you're adding to cart, you're beginning that checkout process. All that is being watched. And if you were to stop, if halfway through you abandon your cart, you just say, okay, I'm gonna think about it, and come back 3 days later, all of your website navigation will have been tracked by the Facebook pixel, and it's constantly watching you. Again, it's kind of it's a more aggressive word than I'd like to use, but simply it's just watching your clicks to end up actually purchasing within a given amount of time. One of the first things that Facebook's response to the iOS 14.5 update is to get rid of the 28-day attribution window. So what that means is that a person who clicked on an ad had up to 28 days to purchase or to convert based upon whatever the ad they clicked on, what the objective was for that ad. So they had 28 days and 1 day view through. That got shortened down to 7 days. So immediately, if you have a high ticket priced item, you're out of that equation, because we all know higher ticket priced items require historically more than a 7 day buy window. And so we saw average a lot of our higher ticket priced items averaging that 14 to 16 day window, and we would not be getting attributable information from that. That was one of the first things that Facebook kind of rolled out, which was one of the first punches we had to avoid. And in terms of now what's going to happen with iOS 14, that the issue with not only just mobile advertisers, but web advertisers, is that web to app and app to web transactions, or clicks, I should say, are going to be affected. So basically, Facebook has rolled out this feature called aggregated event measurement. AEM for short is what our teams refer to it as. So AEM basically is Facebook's way of being able to track. So when you click an ad on your phone, and that opens the little window to the website, it's technically all housed within Facebook still. You're not actually opening your browser. You're opening a sub browser almost within Facebook. That transaction, or that conversion, if you end up purchasing, will still be affected by the IDFA, or by the post in the post IDFA world within the iOS 14 update. And if you opted out, let's say you opted out on my phone on Facebook, on your mobile app on Facebook, I saw an ad, clicked on it, went to the website, came back 3 days later on my desktop and bought. Since you still opted out and they know your identifier tag, they would not be able to add that purchase back to you. Aggregated event measurement allows us to at least get one event back, but with very little data, it's just kind of a shot in the dark almost. It's like Facebook's way of saying, hey, we know this person purchased, we can't tell you anything about it, we can't tell you what they purchased, we can't tell you how much, unless you have a little, there's a couple, I won't get too much into the value based and everything, but basically we are missing a lot of key parts, a lot of key ingredients to be able to attribute properly, not only on mobile, but also affecting web, since Facebook, think about it, majority of traffic in today is all done on mobile apps, even Facebook, or mobile browsers for that matter. It affects everything. And this should be noted, any third-party app. So any app on the App Store has to adhere to this, basically.
Yeah. And if you're just now joining us, we have the Q&A section, and this call is basically for anybody that has joined to ask us any question that you have. Right now, we're talking about some complex stuff with the iOS, update, kind of going and battling it out with Facebook and the attribution and all that good stuff. I know that sounds complicated, so if you have a question about it, be sure and hit the Q&A section up. The one question that I have that I would like to get answered today is, who are the people that are the most affected by this update so far?
In terms of, I think, my camera shut off. Hold on, let me fix that.
As far as like a business, what businesses, what stores, what infrastructure does somebody have to actually be affected by this? A mobile app? Do they have to have, is it just for mobile app people, or is it?
No, it's really everyone. To be honest, you got to think, the fact that, when this first rolled out, everyone thought, okay, this is just going to affect mobile advertisers. And that's a huge part of the industry, but then we became realizing Facebook was doing all those seminars in early January, and it's going to affect anyone who has a mobile app. So for example, if you're a small business and you're running Facebook ads, and that's your livelihood, you're generating really good profits from Facebook ads specifically. If your customers all of a sudden get prompted to opt out, you're going to start losing a lot of those purchases, and you're going to start not being able to tell, are these people actually purchasing? And so it's not only just affecting small businesses, it's going to affect really everyone. I think for the most part, everyone's kind of having to shift. How do we attribute? How do we know the effectiveness of our ads? So we're not going back to the Stone Age, for the lack of a better term, days of blindly throwing money into advertising and not having any attributable way to track that. Because if you have a Shopify store and your clients opted out, or your customers opted out, and they click the Facebook, they go through Facebook, they somehow end up on your website, that's where that web to app conversion issue with aggregated event measurement will still occur, at least with Facebook specifically.
Right. And I think
so it's everything.
I think that we have to make sure everybody understands that what we are talking about is tracking specific events back to Facebook ads specifically. So throwing dollars into Facebook advertising is great because it's a very, very actionable advertising platform. Meaning we see the dollars that we're putting in, and we see the actions that are happening because of those dollars, because of attribution. And so what everybody needs to understand is what we're talking about is, if you have Facebook ads running, and after this update, your metrics inside of your Facebook ads manager are going to change.
Yep.
And that's the end all be all of it, is that the metrics are going to change. Your return on ad spend might go down. Your amount of events might go down, simply because people that are opted out are no longer being tracked. That does not mean that they're not seeing your ads. So Aiden, for instance, has a question about how privacy for iOS 14, if an anti-ad setting is flipped on by default. And in my,
so I can answer that slightly. I think Aiden, I think what you're saying is this tracking prompt, the ATT tracking prompt, is it turned on by default? And this is actually a question that we've been waiting for an answer from Facebook about, because recently we had heard from some sources, some other fellow media buyers, that in certain cases, if you have this app installed in your phone already and you update, there have been people who have noticed that the prompt from Facebook had not shown up, but when they had gone in the settings specifically on their iPhone and seen Facebook, tracking was turned off. So I don't really have a specific answer. I don't think really anyone does if that's confirmed. However, I can confirm personally and with our team that we have not seen that personally yet. I've actually been prompted on all my apps. And as an advertiser, obviously, I'm allowing all of it because I want to. I think that's one of the things people don't understand is that this isn't going to stop anyone from seeing ads. There's this common misconception that, by people who don't know what advertising really, what goes into this and what they see on Facebook ads are like, I just want to stop seeing Facebook ads. That's never going to happen. You're always going to see Facebook ads. But this is what this is doing, is making the system blind. So they're going to show you more irrelevant ads than you've ever seen before. So there's an Instagram account that I follow. It's an advertising joke account, and they made a joke this morning about a guy on his phone, a normal guy, loves sports kind of stuff, seeing an ad for G-strings and thongs, and it's like, this is what happens now. You're gonna start seeing ads like this post IDFA in this iOS 14.5 world, because there's no way to target effectively. I mean, I shouldn't say that. There's no way. We're losing a lot of the ground that we had originally. So to answer your original question, are they flipped on by default? I do not believe so. There have been rumors and murmurs online on Reddit and things like this as well that people have seen it turned on by default, but from what we've seen so far, it has not been turned on by default. But the update will prompt, the tracking prompt will appear anytime you update to iOS 14.5. And weirdly enough, I actually was seeing it on 14.4.1 too, which could have been the apps pushing those through early. Who knows?
Yeah, for sure. And
we have
again,
another question here. Oh, you go.
Go ahead, Josiah.
It says, what has your experience been with regulated industries such as cannabis or CBD?
So you want to go, White? You want to go?
No, we're going to say the same thing, so you go ahead.
So the thing is, as far as an iOS situation goes, they're going to be affected just like anybody else. But specifically with Facebook ads, regulated industries like cannabis, CBD, prescription drugs, all those things are very, very tightly regulated inside the Facebook ad policies. I would encourage everyone, if you are a part of one of those industries, to go and search for the policy that you are actually inside when it comes to Facebook ads. So for instance, like recreational drugs, technically CBD is considered a recreational drug. Don't know why. I'm not about it. I mean, I'm just letting you guys know I like CBD. So it's like, I don't know why Facebook hasn't let that kind of go out, but that's what their stance is on it so far. However, I will say, when it comes to cannabis and CBD both, topical creams, recovery bombs, stuff like that, anything that is not ingested is fair game. As long as you don't talk about how it's a recreational drug, how it's not weed, it's not CBD this or whatever, as long as you refer to it as a plant-based recovery agent or whatever you want to call it. Like, it really comes down to how you're marketing it. But topical stuff is fair game. So anything you can put on your body, fair game. As far as regulated industries go. Too.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, White.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I think one of the things that a lot of people who run their own ads, or maybe other, not as experienced media buyers might not know, is that what Nate's referring to is not simply just what your ad's saying, but your website has to say this as well. Your lander, wherever you're sending people to, if you have an ad that's running topical cream and stuff, and you technically are within the policy, if you're running ads to a landing page that it's clearly saying CBD brand, things like that, Facebook will flag you. Facebook knows it's equally important to them where you're directing traffic, especially if it's off-site, off Facebook traffic. If you're sending traffic off of Facebook, they're going to watch those landing pages. They're going to look for this kind of stuff. So if your landing page also does not fit within the Facebook ads policy or is somewhat close to it, you will also be flagged. So you have to make sure. The only way we've been able to successfully do this so far is like what Nathan said, topical creams, things like that, and your website has to reflect that as well.
So we do have a question from Daniel. He says, any specific topics or questions I should ask my agency on how they are addressing these issues? So, I'll say this. We've been getting the question. Shopanova has been getting the question for 2 months now. And that kind of leads into the discussion of how we're using Hyros and such like that. Before we get into that, there's another question from Shay. Says Facebook and Instagram won't allow me to sell my detox and it has no CBD in it. I will say, Shay, on the personal health stuff, a lot of times people get flagged because they show like before and after pictures, or they show what are referred to as unrealistic results. So I would check out your creative and make sure you don't have anything going like that. But let's go into Daniel's question, Wyatt. What are we doing as an agency to kind of combat these issues that are going on with the attribution windows and such?
Well, so the first thing, that we thought of, we basically got notified early December to change, everyone was told like late December, basically that Apple was going to roll this out in January. So immediately the first thought process was, okay, we're now going to project. You have to plan for the worst case scenario, plan for the worst amount of opt-ins, for the most amount of opt-outs on this, projecting that we're likely going to have a lot of zeroed out numbers, a lot of blank spaces, and so far we've seen a lot of that. I will say that it's been somewhat gradual, but the first thing we knew we had to do was, okay, what are we going to do in order to keep some attribution in some regard? Because while we can say, we can be hopeful that a lot of people are going to opt in, no, you got to plan for worst case scenario. And we realized that this is simply only affecting the IDFA. And again, it's an identifier for advertisers. And the way the Facebook pixel works, and like I touched on earlier, what I refer to, and a lot of people you've heard as people-based tracking, cookie-based tracking, with the way the Facebook pixel tracks, it attributes back to a profile. There's all the science of how Facebook works, and they rely heavily on the IDFA in order to do that, especially with personalized ads. What we realized is that, okay, we can track and be able to attribute without that. Now, granted, we did not develop that ourselves, but people like Alex Becker and his team at Hyros have understand that you don't have to rely on IDFAs to be able to track. So simply what we have now done as a partner with Hyros directly, if you're not familiar with Hyros, go check it out. It's probably going to be, I feel like Alex Becker's been right about everything that he's talked about. And I'm going to go with a winning card there and say that he will be right about everything he's going to talk about too. And so what this allows us to do is simply track the clicks that occur, simply like another attribution platform. There's other great ones like Wicked Reports, Segmetrics. There's a lot of other different companies. You might even have your own server-side tracking. And server-side tracking is just simply bypassing any pixel. It's just simply connecting directly between servers. Facebook has this conversions API, and there's a misconception that solves the iOS 14 update. That's totally false. It does not solve it. The effects still are on what's known as CAPI, C-A-P-I, the acronym. But specifically with Hyros, what it allows us to do is track conversions and track people's clicks simply across a URL. And then once they opt in or once they give their own data, because when I purchase something on a website, I'm giving them my email, my phone number, my location. Heck, they're even probably seeing my IP address. They're getting all this because I'm giving this to them when I purchase something. So what it's doing is eventually, when someone purchases, if I go click on a site now and 7 days from now I purchase, or 30 days from now I purchase, let's just say 30 days, that's outside of the Facebook attribution. With Hyros directly, if I purchase, they will have known my original source click and be able to go back and say, okay, Wyatt came on January 1st and came from a Facebook ad, and he went away. He came back through a Google ad. He went away, and then he came back and finally purchased 30 days later. And they would be able to track that accordingly with different attribution tracking models. And basically allows us to then take that information, to take that data that Hyros has collected and send it back to Facebook in the form of a pixel or an event. And we can optimize our campaigns from a media buyer's perspective. We can optimize for the conversions happening on that Hyros data rather than optimizing on the Facebook data, because the Facebook data is kind of a mess. We don't know what's going to happen. We're still kind of, it's only been a week, really, almost 2 weeks now. We're not going to really see the full effects for another 30 to 60 days. So at least we know with Hyros data, we're getting actual purchaser information. And so far, we've been actually able to lower our ad costs and drive higher results and higher revenue and return on ad spend by optimizing for the pixel that has the accurate data from Hyros. So not only is it just tracking our data accurately, it's also allowing us to take that data, optimize it in our ad sets and our campaigns, and actually make more money at a lower cost. And I kind of was like, I was skeptical at first. I've been doing this a long time. And I'm like, what? AI optimization tracking, okay, whatever. Until we actually started doing it with our clients, we're like, wow, okay, this works. We knew that Hyros worked. We've seen it. We saw campaigns that Facebook was reporting, like a retargeting campaign. So a hot bottom of funnel campaign. Someone's clicked on a product, they've added to their cart, and we want to say, hey, we saw you had this in your cart. Here's 10% off. We really, your unique code, whatever our, the copy formula we've done, whatever that is. We had seen campaigns that were only reporting one sale for like $30, when in reality, Hyros was tracking those ads and reporting thousands of dollars of profit. And as a media buyer, you think this isn't profitable, we're going to scale somewhere else. So you turn that off based on what Facebook's telling you. When in reality, we were leaving so much money on the table simply because Facebook wasn't tracking properly.
Right.
End of story. I mean, it's just, it doesn't get much better than that, really.
And on that note, I do want to encourage everyone, if you are running Facebook ads at all, if you're running Google ads even, I mean, if you are running traffic, paid traffic, highly recommend you look into Hyros. We've partnered with them to basically bring the service to our clients, and we actually offer it at no extra cost. It's built into our retainers at this point, just because we believe in it that much. I've actually been using it for our own company marketing for about 6 to 8 months now. And I mean, it's done wonders for what we do, specifically because we advertise and we bring people in from multiple different sources. So I also run ads on YouTube. I have email marketing, obviously. I've got a podcast. I've got all of these things that are a part of my marketing stack. And I can put Hyros on every single piece of my marketing stack, and it will actually show me where exactly all of our customers are coming from. And so as a media buyer, as a marketer in general, like being able to attribute all of the customers to certain spots allows me to scale where I need to. And At the moment, we're just not real confident that Facebook is doing that on its own yet. So Neil, for instance, asks, should I wait to launch campaigns until the iOS 14 thing is kind of ironed out? I don't think you have to wait. If you go get something like Hyros or an advanced tracking system that kind of bypasses the pixel a little bit, that's the main issue is the Facebook pixel. It's not so much, iOS 14 as much as it is the Facebook pixel at this point. And so what we're really having to do is kind of bypass the Facebook pixel way of doing things a little bit.
And it's simply that way because Facebook relied on this information that they didn't own. That was it. Is it aggressive of Apple? Is it kind of hypocritical that they're not doing this for their own apps? I mean, one could argue. Nonetheless, Facebook has been relying on data that was owned by Apple and, and other, or not, I shouldn't say owned by Apple, owned by the people. And now they've simply just given people the choice whether they want to distribute that or not. And they're having to scramble to figure out how, when in reality, you don't really have to rely on the Facebook pixel in order to attribute correctly.
Right. And so Rachel asks, if two-part question, is Facebook going to be able to actually optimize with, conversions being not tracked or purchasers not being tracked? And is it going to be able to find lookalike audiences? And then the second part of the question was about Hyros specifically being able to show how campaigns are performing. And also, is that information relayed back to Facebook? Wyatt, do you want to take those two questions?
I'd love to. Yeah. So Rachel, for your first question, as far as your conversions and optimizing, I'm going to address the lookalikes first. When we first learned about this, we are obviously a Facebook marketing partner. We have our VIP support team we work with, and our partner manager told us lookalikes will not be affected. They still will be able to reach, so a 1% lookalike reaches, off the top of my head, like it's like 2.1 or 2.3 million, one of those numbers right there. They'll still be able to reach 2 million. That number won't change. However, your seed audience, so if you had a seed audience of an add to cart, you want to create a lookalike of an add to cart, 1% add to cart users in the last 30 days. That seed audience will be smaller because Facebook cannot fully be able to collect those people and bring them into that seed audience. So you might just have to wait a little bit longer for your seed audience to build up, or start it. It just might take a little bit of time. Obviously, my biggest motto as a Facebook advertiser is you have to spend money to make money. You have to spend. You got to get things. You got to give things time. You got to be confident in spending. It can't be your last resort. You got to have budget available to do this, because the best advertisers test and they do these things thousands of dollars. Now, we have a strategy in place where you don't have to do that, but it is, that's going to help you get there quicker. Obviously, it's like, running, a faster car versus a slower car, which one you want to drive. And then in terms of, I'm just going to look at, I had wanted to pull up the questions, and Nathan, you closed them out already. And so let me go back.
Specifically about Hyros sending the conversions back and optimizing.
Hyros. Yep. Yeah. So with Hyros, what we were able to do is take those, like I mentioned, take those conversions and optimize our ad sets for them, which in turn helps Facebook optimize a little bit more, simply because we're not only giving more data, we're getting more accurate purchases, but we're also, it's just kind of a way that we can, it's a little advanced strategy where we can get lower costs and higher returns, because it's still saying we're going to get a purchase. We're still optimizing for purchases technically. However, it's a more accurate purchase, and Facebook can go track those a little bit easier. And regarding Hyros, in terms of, will my campaigns be affected as far as, does Hyros show me how my campaigns are performing, or does it also pass that information to my Facebook campaigns to make the ads perform more effectively? So the latter of which I just talked about, sending those conversions back, that AI optimization, you'll see that if you look at them up, that's what they're referring to. And then it also tells you how your campaigns are performing. It actually tells you all the way down to the ad set level how it's performing. I think they'll be able to do this on the ad level relatively quickly. They have a huge development team, and they're just constantly putting new things out. So I think we'll be able to get down to the ad level relatively quickly. But on Hyros' platform, it actually will tell you how each ad set is performing, how each campaign is performing, and tell you what Facebook is reporting and what's actually being tracked based on the clicks. And, there's been questions of people like, hey, how accurate is Hyros? It's like, well, I mean, you can't really, a click is a hard piece of evidence. When someone clicks on something, that is a hard piece of evidence on what they're doing. Whereas what Facebook does with view through attribution, if you swipe through and see an ad, and you've been reached, or you're an impression, if you buy within one day. So if I saw an ad for a boutique marketing or a boutique fashion brand, and I just saw it across my feed and went back a day later and bought it, they would attribute me to that, when technically that's a really loose form of attribution. So what Hyros does is it allows you to compare and contrast what Facebook is saying, so you can know where to scale and put your money in to be effective. Because right now, majority of advertisers who aren't using an advanced tracking software are blind. They are throwing money and not knowing where they're going to scale or grow. That's the biggest thing here, is that as an agency, to answer Daniel's question earlier about, addressing this device location targeting and just targeting in general, a lot of agencies probably don't have a resort, last resort, a solution, a solve for this, because, you're just blindly throwing money into Facebook and may or may not see those results back. And that's what we're trying to combat. And so far, we've done pretty successfully.
And the last thing that I'll add to that is that Hyros has a Chrome extension where you can actually see the results inside of your Facebook Ads Manager or inside of your Google AdWords account. It's really nifty. I like to use it. We're going to move on to the next part, but I'm going to keep Wyatt on here to answer any questions that you guys have through the actual chat. Wyatt, do you see where you can type the answer and stuff like that to the Q&A people? Cool. So Wyatt's going to stay on, answer some questions, but I'm going to turn gears a little bit over to my other two panelists, my man Josiah, who's actually on my team here at Shopanova, and then my right-hand guy, Brian, who basically is crafting up some really cool stuff for us these days. But we're going to talk about creative today. Photography, videography, all of the real fun stuff that goes on Facebook and Instagram. Not so much the nitty-gritty numbers and attribution and all that, but let's talk about the surface. Let's talk about the creative strategy. With all of these changes that are coming, the one thing that everybody's talking about right now is that creative is going to be the most important part of your marketing stack moving forward. You can used to, we could get nice and creative with our audiences and our targeting and all that good stuff. And now targeting is really going to be affected by all this stuff, by all this privacy initiatives and all that stuff. So, audiences are going to get slashed. we just never know what's going to happen. But the one thing that we can control, the one thing that we can keep consistent is our creative strategy and how it speaks to our audience. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to pull Josiah in and talk about our strategy at Shopanova a little bit. And so Josiah, me and you have talked, in depth for months now about how, we want to speak to our audience and all that. What have you learned as far as that goes, and how have you applied it to our creative strategy?
Yeah, so I think I totally agree with what you said about being consistent with these content strategies, because when it comes down to it, there are formulas that you can use and learn for your business. And sort of like across the board principle I keep in mind is give value first, build genuine trust with them, and then ask for whatever you're asking for, the sale, whatever. But some things to ask yourself when you're putting together content and writing out a script, maybe, which I highly recommend, is following this structure of what will give people a reason to watch your video and stop the scroll? Who is your target audience? What is their problem or pain point? How does your company fill that need or resolve that issue? And why you? Why would they choose your company over the other ones? And then why should they visit your store right now? And then while you keep all those things in mind and answer those questions and maybe write a script accordingly, then think about what's annoying in ads that you've seen already that is just useless crap, whether maybe they lean too much into being funny or they weren't direct enough with their product or service, and just make sure that you're, you get them with the hook, you keep them entertained. People talk about there's only like 3 seconds before somebody's going to scroll past your ad, right? So you want to be direct, but also give people a reason to keep watching that content, because there's a lot.
And that's something that we talk about all the time when it comes to creative, especially at the top of the funnel, at that cold audience that's never seen your brand before. The first thing that we talk about is stopping the scroll, right? With Facebook and Instagram, or virtually any platform at this point, the average American is digesting content so fast now that you have to get their attention right away. You have to stop the scroll. So Josiah, give me one surefire technique that we've used to stop that scroll.
Green screen.
Green screen. Tell me about that. How have we incorporated that?
Well, I pulled out a green screen for this one with Rob. Dan actually wasn't in the office at that point. He was out on a trip. And basically, if you say you're in my position, a content creator for a company, you whip out a green screen and the sky is the limit, right? When you learn how to just do that quick mask, light it properly and everything, then you can really, what I did is I had Rob falling from the sky and then crawling out of a computer screen once he hit the ground. And then he went up to space, all while talking about e-commerce and what we do. And what was great about that one, I think, is that we were able to take such a creative and eye-catching approach while at the same time being completely direct with our audience, because Rob was just talking about what we do, what we offer. He wasn't getting sidetracked with, I'm falling from the sky. It was just happening. And it gives you a reason to watch while being direct.
Yep. And I think we talked about that. Like the first time I saw that ad, Josiah ran it by me. He's like, what do you think of this? And the first thing I said was like, when he wrote the script, I immediately, I read the script and I was like, I can't see this. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't get it, whatever. But he showed me the video and I was like, that works. That works exactly the way we intended it to be. So hats off to Josiah for that video, for sure. So green screen, great technique to stop the scroll. Let's talk a little bit about what techniques have we used to, like when we start talking about retargeting, maybe it's not top of funnel, maybe it's not the first time somebody sees us, Maybe we want to talk about our product attributes a little bit more in the retarget, which means like we want to highlight our product. We want to talk about why we're different. We've talked about the pain points and stuff like that, but we need to talk about why we're different and what sets us apart for the next brand, right? What's a way that we can do that visually, Josiah?
A little confused by the question.
So if we want to talk about, let's say, a t-shirt, there's tons of different t-shirt brands out there, right? Tons of different kinds of t-shirts. You got cotton, polyester, yada, yada, right? You got all these different t-shirts on the marketplace. Give me one technique that you can think of that we could differentiate our t-shirt from the next. Is that like, somebody stretching on it to make it known that like it's a 4-way stretch t-shirt? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I think that comes to just making sure that you're relating with your audience when you do those methods. I've seen phone cases are a great example, right? There's plenty of phone cases, they drop them or whatever. But what catches my eye when I see a phone case is like the ones that they throw off of like buildings and stuff like that. And those are relatable things that catch your eye and you're like, oh, actually, yeah, that's legitimate while eye-catching. And then for a t-shirt, I've seen some stuff like pants like pulling a car and stuff, and that's that's eye-catching, and maybe that weighs on the side of being a little more eye-catching than like you're not actually going to haul a car with pants, but you could.
I love those examples. Josiah, Katerina, I'm not real sure how to pronounce it. She has a question for you. I'd like you to answer her inside of the chat if you can. I'm going to switch over to Brian. And Brian, I'd like to know, like, what's an ad that you've seen recently? As a creative professional, what's an ad that you've seen recently that's really caught your attention? And why do you think it caught your attention?
So one of the ones that I think you can go super. First off, I love Josiah's falling from the sky ad. That catches me every time. Nathan does a great job of retargeting me. I see that one all the time and I love it. But I think you can go simple as well. I think it was Thread, the brand Thread, that they actually had just a GIF beside kind of an establishing shot and a side-by-side of a shirt where a guy was just kind of putting it on, and he just kind of showed some motion as well as like a detail of the actual fabric itself. So if we're going to kind of stay on the t-shirt brand style, it actually was very simple, but I saw it and I was like, this is shot really well. It looks comfortable. He's showing some motion with it, as well as kind of some detail of like what I would like to see in a t-shirt. And so just, you can keep it simple and kind of almost do what we call as your establishing shot, as well as more of a cropped in or zoomed in detail shot. And so keeping it kind of aesthetically pleasing, that was one that for me, now, the other day, Nathan and I were actually just talking about this. Is really, really funny, but Freddy's, like the fast food joint, somehow I got a targeted ad for them. It was about the recruiting, and they sat down and talked through this guy who was looking at doing a job application and walked through what their hiring process was. But it was just shot in a way that was like kind of visually appealing. You got to kind of see behind the scenes, which I think is great in any kind of ad creative. If you can show a behind the scenes process of your company or how you do things, how you make things. They do this a lot with pizza joints as well. If you want to really do well with local advertising, show what your process is, show how much you care and what you're putting into it, the ingredients, that type of thing, and really go about it with a storytelling mindset. I think that a lot of times doesn't have to be crazy. If you can do crazy, go crazy to stop that scroll, but you could also go on the simple side of things and really be able to tell a great story as well as move people to convert.
And I think, so I was talking to you about this morning, and my best example is the State Farm commercials. Right? Mm-hmm. Because it's insurance. It's boring. It's a boring industry. And I mean, it's a competitive industry. Everybody needs insurance, right? So for the most part, everybody's just looking at the most cost-effective option for insurance. But State Farm stands out with their advertising and their commercials, right? And the one that I really like, obviously, was the Jake from State Farm commercial, because it was hilarious, but at the same time, it literally conveyed that this guy is going to be at the office at 1 o'clock in the morning when you need to pick up the phone and file a claim or whatever the case may be. It was a very subtle way of saying that. And I'm not sure if everybody got that or not. I did, but it was like, I mean, being somebody that's in the marketing industry, I knew exactly what they were doing, but the way that they did it and how creative and hilarious it was phenomenal. It was off the charts.
Yeah, dude, State Farm, basically, like the ones I've been pushed, because they're such a big brand, they don't follow a lot of those methods I just talked about. They're not very direct, but they leave it mostly up into interpretation. Like the one I see the most is the guy just meditating there with like somebody, the guy from State Farm. It's just, and then that's it. That's the YouTube ad. Just meditates and then State Farm. So maybe not a perfect example for, where your business is at right now, but it's definitely like a step up on creative, like to take note of,
And that's what we were talking about this morning was the difference between something humorous like State Farm and something like Allstate, where it's like morbid every single time. It's like you're in good hands and it's like a freaking car crash or a train wreck or whatever the case may be. It's a completely different approach. It's the fear versus the humor. And I mean, to be honest with you guys, I've seen both approaches used in business. I've seen both approaches work for businesses. It really just depends on how you want to build your brand. Do you want to build a brand that's more engaging, funny, relatable, or do you want to build a brand that's more direct, to the point, but shows it in a creative way? I mean, those Allstate commercials, like you've got that guy that's narrating it, and he's just got that real deep voice. You know what I mean? It's like you can remember that commercial, but it's a completely different type of engagement, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I really like that example for sure.
Yeah, and it's totally like about what your business does, right? So, like they're an insurance company, and when I think insurance, I think of boring, right? So they are leaning more into their creative side and their maybe goofy side, and so I think you kind of fall somewhere in that scale of maybe your store is already goofy enough that you can be just very direct and present it in that way already. But there's a different level of creativity that you might need, if you're like an insurance company, because it's a little dry sometimes.
I think most of your, and you kind of mentioned this, Nathan, but it's got to evoke some type of emotion, right? Whether that is humor or that's fear or that, whatever it is, like good ad creative has to kind of pull at your heartstrings a little bit in a way that makes you take action. And so both of those are a good example, because again, like Josiah said, if you're going for that boring route, maybe you do have to spice it up a little bit. But if you're already kind of a zany brand, being a little more serious might actually help you,
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've talked about top of funnel, stopping the scroll, and we've talked about the mid-level retarget with, highlighting your product and the messaging and such. Now we're going to talk about the last part of our strategy, which is the deep retarget, when somebody's taken all this action but didn't go all the way. They didn't purchase. They might have added to their cart. They might have looked at a product on a page, but they didn't go all the way. And my surefire way to get those types of people to come back and take action is with what we call user-generated content, okay? And what I'm going to do, I want Wyatt to kind of talk about our strategy at the bottom of the funnel, deep retarget, and how we use that user-generated content to bring somebody back and purchase.
I think it's quite simple. If you think about a product, whether it's a T-shirt, whether it's a brand new computer tech piece of equipment that you need, it's costing you $1,000, whatever the price point is, ultimately, so you have to make a decision, and you want to think, okay, if it's a piece of clothing, how would this look on me? I've seen the product, I've seen the features, I've read about how this brand's literally, donating, hundreds of thousands of dollars to children in Africa, whatever it may be. I've learned about all the brand, but what's really like, how now thinking internally for yourself, like, okay, what, how would I look on this? Or, is this real? Or is this, hey, is this, do people actually like the product? And it's just really, it's that testimonial hitting on like reviews. It's someone talking to you as if it's your best friend saying, oh my God, this is literally, like I see those, I see those random ads. It's for, I don't know the name of the brand, but it's like, they're fitted shirts. So you don't like, they're not extra large or, whatever. So you can hide your beer belly and whatever, but it's like a shirt for men. Oops. There's my camera again. But the same thing applies there. It's almost like, okay, well, now I want to see for myself. Does it actually work? If my buddy was telling me this, how would I do it? Or when I pull the trigger? And ultimately, that's what the thought process is. Okay, it's like telling someone, look, this is why you need this. This is what it's done for me. Really, it's not even really. I should take that back. It's not really even telling you like, hey, this is why you need this. It's more just hearing from someone else. This is what it did for me, and I'd love to. It's the same thing when at least for myself and my wife, when we go on Amazon, I'm going to purchase something that's a significant price. I'm going to go to the reviews. I'm going to see photos. I want to see it myself. I want to hear what other people are saying. It's the same principle. And that should go through your website, through your ads, through your creative specifically. But user-generated content could be a huge resource for getting people in and finally getting them to purchase in your funnel.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like that example. Like when I hop on Amazon, if it doesn't have any photos, any review photos, I don't even want to buy it.
Yep.
Think about how powerful that is to have somebody talk highly of your brand, but then also show the practical use of it. Just because, like you said, it's like your friend giving you that example that everybody, I think, has the want for when they're going to purchase, but haven't quite.
And it's only, I think it's incredibly important with whatever the product you're trying to sell is, but it only gets more important the higher ticket price item that you're trying to sell.
Yeah, bigger
that brings up a great point, is just the fact that we're all consumers. We all purchase products, right? So at the end of the day, if you want to know how to sell something, look at yourself.
Yeah.
How do you shop? How do you, like, what makes you buy something? Think about it, because you can definitely apply that to your own strategy. I'm gonna switch with the user-generated content. I want Brian to walk me through how can I go about getting that generated content, the user-generated content, and do I need a model? Do I need somebody? Do I have to send an email out to somebody and get that, or like, can I make a selfie video? Like, in your opinion, what's the best way to go about making this user-generated content?
Those are all options. So, I would say, and just even kind of tracking back here, a lot of our top funnel brand awareness campaigns are usually that produced type content, right? But when we get down to the bottom, we want that user generated because we want that testimonial type piece, like what you're saying. And so a lot of that is going to be less produced or so. But I'm excited that, with even here at Shopanova, we're launching some new creative strategies as well to help with that user generated content and being able to contact real actual people to be able to actually use that your services, your products, whatever it is that you're actually going through, and be able to create not so produced content, because a lot of times that's what we connect with. Is a real human being able to actually share that experience, share that product, and be able to see their actual reaction to it.
And it's almost like what are they called? Where they research, they put people in a room and they throw a product in the room. What is it?
Yeah. Focus group.
Focus group. That's it. So that's really the approach that I see. What we're going to do is we're going to have somebody send us their product, and we might have, a couple of models lined up or whatever the case may be, but it's not going to be just the model wearing it. We're going to give that product to them, and we're going to say, hey, tell me what your first thoughts are about this. And we're going to video them while they're saying it, right? It's that simple. Like, a lot of people overcomplicate things, but at the end of the day, it's that simple. You literally just throw it at somebody and say, tell me what your thoughts are, and I'm going to record it. And that's it. That's all it is, right? So I will stress.
Assuming your product's good.
Assuming your product's good. That's right. Everybody thinks their product's amazing, right? Until
I'm kidding.
No, that is so true, though. So I don't see any questions on creative. I'm going to wrap this up. if you guys have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me directly, Nathan@shopanova.com. If you like what you've heard, check out shopanova.com. We've got, advanced tracking solutions. We've got in-house creative now. Brian's team standing by. He's ready to make some creative for people. And let us know what you guys think about this specific curtain call as well, because we're going to do some more. And if you guys have anything that you would like us to touch on, again, send me an email. And I've got Wyatt, team of 35 people behind me that are ready to jump on and talk about some stuff.
Yep.
And Nathan,
really knowledgeable too.
Oh, sorry. Are we going to slap this on YouTube so people can jump in if they missed anything?
Yeah, eventually we are. So that's it for today, guys. I'll see you in 2 weeks, maybe a month, something like that.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.